I'm into this obscure independent ride. You've probably never heard of it, called the Haunted Mansion. Okay, so if you've been spending time in the online theme park space, you've probably by now heard about Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour. You've probably heard about it from Defunctland, and you probably know that it was really scary and dark and weird. But why did Disney build this? I mean, I'm fascinated by Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour because it is one of the very last attractions designed by Claude Coates, and I feel that he was able to sort of integrate some of the ideas from the Haunted Mansion back when it was supposed to be a walkthrough attraction into a really unique synthesis. But when we talk about the Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour, it's mostly talked about in the bucket that a lot of Disney stuff gets thrown into, where it's old and weird and we don't know why it existed. And I'm the one who's not satisfied with that answer. I'm the one who needs to know why it existed. So why did it exist? Why did Disney build the Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour? Well, look, unless you're talking about Disneyland, unless you're talking specifically about Disneyland in California, I guarantee you that less is known about the design of theme parks than you can possibly conceive of. Like, far, far less is known about the decisions that went into why things were done the way that they were done. We know that the Haunted Mansion was always intended to be an opening day ride at Tokyo Disneyland. I would love to know if they always intended to have some kind of walkthrough experience inside the castle. I would love to know what that was originally going to be. I would love to know if the idea changed over time. There really is almost no information about it. But a part of what fascinates me about the Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour is how Claude Coates it is. It's really, really Claude Coates. It's really, really weird and interesting in Claude Coates. Claude was a massive Japanophile, a point in time when it was really not mainstream at all to be so. He went multiple times. He loved Japanese art and Japanese films and Japanese culture and things like that. And I mean, like, that's a really big stretch for a man of his generation, the generation that fought the Japanese in World War II, and that's very interesting to me as well. But the Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour is really Claude Coates, and it's really Japan. Okay, so what do I mean by the fact that it's really Japan? Well, I think part of the reason why Disney or Claude Coates was pitching the concept of a scary walkthrough is because Japan actually has a much longer tradition of scary walkthroughs than they do scary ride-throughs. So, in the Western world, the way that technology happened to collide with culture was such that there was a technological breakthrough that allowed for immersive ride-through experiences at pretty much exactly the same time that there was a massive cultural interest in scary things. We're talking about the late 20s, the early 30s, the pit of the Depression. That's when the Universal horror movies came out. That's sort of when Halloween began to catch on as a scary time of year. And that is when dark rides became a thing. All that stuff happened simultaneously, and that is part of the reason why we sort of had scary ride-through attractions before we had scary walk-through attractions. The scary walk-through attractions came later in the 1970s with the rise of, now Scary Farm and things like that. Okay, so what about traditional Japanese horror attractions? If you go to traditional Japanese amusement parks, not theme parks, you are going to very consistently see a walk-through haunted house attraction. And what really interests me about these attractions is that they really do reflect Japan's differing conception of horror than but they're very atmospheric. Usually not a lot happens. Usually you walk through alone, not in a group or in a chain of people. Usually everything in there is automated. There might be a couple jump scares, but not necessarily. It's a form that's distinct, and it's consistent when you come across it. It has an internal logic. It clearly has the weight of a historical precedent behind it. And I don't know what that precedent is. You're going to have to find someone who can speak and read Japanese and be able to go to primary sources that are in Japan, and I just don't have the capability of doing that. All I can do is look at these results and say, okay, this is what Japanese considered a haunted house to be. And that's the rub, isn't it? That's what's really interesting about it, is that those of us in the West have a conception of what a Disney attraction is. And so when Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour colors outside of those perceptions, we go, oh my god, it's so weird, look at this! Have you seen this weird thing that Disney did in Japan where everything is weird? But consider this. You're a Japanese person going to Tokyo Disneyland in 1983, and the idea that the scary attraction is a ride-through is as weird to you as the idea of a scary walk-through attraction in Cinderella Castle is to us. And that's what I would love to know. The Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour was one of the first attractions that opened after Tokyo Disneyland opened, and was it created to meet Japanese audiences and Japanese expectations halfway? Because to them, a scary walkthrough was a normal, expected, default thing. And were there discussions where Oriental Land Company went back to Disney and said, well, they don't understand why there isn't this thing in this park, and then Claude stepped up and said, I'll give them a scary walkthrough, and created the Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour. Is that what happened? I don't know, and I would love to know where the tradition of the Japanese horror walkthrough came from, how it was developed, what the early examples were, and how it's reflected in the attractions that are still littered around the country today. Is that part of the reason why it ended up closing? Is because eventually sort of word got out and there was sort of an inbuilt cultural expectation about what a Disney attraction was, and then to the Japanese, the Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour was the weird outlier in the way that we view it as the weird outlier, which is why it had to go. I don't have the answer to any of this. All we have is scraps and echoes and memories and ghosts. But I'm fascinated at the idea that once upon a time, Japanese people might have gone into Tokyo Disneyland and experienced all sorts of stuff that was very foreign and strange to them, and then come across the Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour and said, oh, yeah, this is more like what we expected. This is good. Isn't that interesting? Thanks for watching this. I've been having a lot of fun doing these videos lately. In case you didn't know, I am the author of a book on the Haunted Mansion called Boundless Realm: Deep Explorations Inside Disney's Haunted Mansion. It is 350 pages of me being absolutely autistic about every single detail involved in the ride, so if you like this, go check it out. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.